Hey guys, what's up? This is Alex2K, and today we're talking a little bit more about motion graphics. On the last tutorial, we talked about just a basic folder structure, which I think is one of the most important things. And let's talk about motion graphics itself. So, what are motion graphics? Is the question of the year. Well, that's a tricky question because computer animation is motion graphics. So, to an extent, you can say that you are doing motion graphics, graphics in motion. So, computer animation pretty much is under that category. But, really, at least in my personal opinion, motion graphics is more about, it's like graphic design on steroids, right? So, that's really what it is. I call those are steroids, by the way. So, no, really. Motion graphics, it's all about the design. That's really the main element about it. And it's funny because it's gonna keep changing and it's gonna keep evolving over time, because the design or whatever's cool today is gonna be different tomorrow, and it's gonna be different the day after that, or a couple of years down the line. Even if you look at some graphics from or what used to be motion graphics of, let's say, 10 years ago, that was one thing. And motion graphics today, wow, my spelling is incredible today. Uh, Motion graphics today is a completely different thing from what it used to be. So always remember, motion graphics equals first and foremost design. Alright? And second, of course, the motion. So it's design in motion. That's really what these guys are. Um, you can use Maya if you want to do motion graphics. You can use After Effects to do motion graphics. You can use any other software that allows you to do motion graphics. You're not necessarily stuck with After Effects to do motion graphics. I just want to show you a couple of examples here that I've done of motion graphics. Let me just find it here first. There we go. So this is one example. This is another example. There's another example. This is another example, and this is another example, and this is another example. And this all, to me, can be categorized in this one too as motion graphics. Some use Maya heavily. Some use a mixture between Maya and Photoshop, and some are, Maya and After Effects, and some are just After Effects. So let's just wait for these guys to load up. Here's an example. See, it's a Maya project with a little bit of After Effects just to enhance that motion, but it's about the look. It's got a feel to it. That's really what matters, is that feel, that look. Here's another example. So it's Maya, After Effects in the background. A little bit of Maya and After Effects for this stuff in the foreground. This is another example. This is all Maya. But that background is all motion graphics. Here's another example, Maya in the foreground and motion graphics in the background. This is a great example, see? It's just a Maya element, but there's a treatment. So it looks nice, and it gives you that feel of it being a motion graphic and a mixture of those techniques. Alright, so it's really about that mixture. Okay, this last one, this is all After Effects. But that's heavily just motion graphics. Right, so those are just some examples of motion graphics. And what we're going to do is we're going to do a simple exercise because I've already taken a good time here just showing you those examples and explaining motion graphics. So I'm just going to go ahead and make a new project. And I just want to introduce, since you know how to work with Maya and how to render, and like I told you, it's just about making a treatment, then I'm going to show you just another approach, which is within After Effects, right? So I'm just going to go ahead and make a new composition, and we're going to call this the main comp. And to make life easy, we're going to work at 640 by 480 with 30 frames per second. And just make this, I don't know, let's make it 5 seconds. Alright, so here we got a comp, standard comp, 5 seconds in length. And I already made a couple of assets for this tutorial. I just went into into Photoshop and simply brought in a couple of made a couple of little designs here. So let me just come here. So here's the little folder structure that we talked about, and under compositing assets I got a couple of images here. So I made this little logo thingy, which is actually broken down in layers, and this little city asset, which is also broken down in layers, and I just kept some colors just in case for to identify them, but you can always change those colors. Right, so let's go ahead and make a new composition out of the city assets. Actually, let me just import file city assets. And the reason why I'm re-importing these city assets is because you can import a PSD file as a footage or as composition. And if you do it as composition, then it allows you to merge layer styles into footage and import the actual type of composition. And what that does is that I now have a little composition that has everything I need. I got my layers, which is a sub-comp of these city assets, and in there I got my foreground, middle ground, and background. So it makes my life a little easy. And then this guy, this was the original source where I traced those guys from, so I'm just gonna delete that and wait for my computer to think. There we go. This is just a flat background. And if you want to see where a layer is within your project, you can just right click, review layer source in project, and now I can come here and I can call this white background. And come back to my layers here. And I got background, foreground. I don't need this guy. Reveal in composition. Okay, so I got all these originals that I'm just gonna get rid of. I don't need that comp, and I don't need this layer 4, 3, or 2, so I'm just gonna delete those guys. And here we go, background, foreground, middle ground. So middle ground, foreground, background, and the white background. So that's pretty much all the assets I need. I don't even need this city assets, I don't think. Yeah, I'm not even gonna use that. Delete. So here we go. City assets, background, foreground, middle ground, and layers. So I'm just gonna bring in this background here. And voila. See? So this is the composition. Background, middle ground, and foreground. Alright? Now at the same time, there are let's just go ahead and delete this full city assets comp, and let me delete this simple logo, and I'm gonna import my simple logo, and again I'm gonna import it as a comp and composition. So here we go, simple cycle logo. And if you look at my simple cycle logo, I just got my name, my cycle, and my background. Alright, so nothing too complex. Excuse me. Excuse me one more time. Alrighty. So here on the main comp, what we're gonna do is I'm actually gonna use 3D layers. So I'm gonna start by bringing in the city assets. So here's the background, and as you can see, I made this composition really big. And the reason why I made it really big, the actual Photoshop file is 5000 by 1300, is because I'm gonna make 3D layers. That's the actual reason why. So how do you make 3D layers? There's this little icon here that looks like a cube. When you click that, you just turned this layer into a 3D layer. Hope that was not too complicated. You can add a camera, or you can tumble your view from the camera that you have, but I'm just gonna go ahead and create a new camera. Some people like to animate with a new camera, some people like to animate the layers. To be honest, it's a personal choice. Alright, if you like cameras, then use cameras. If you like moving these guys around, then you can move these guys around. By the way, if you select this little camera here, you need a new camera. So how do you create a camera? You just go to where is that at? Layer, new camera, and you can make it a 35 or a 50 mil. It's up to you. You can enable the depth of field, which is actually pretty cool. So we're gonna go ahead and activate that. Oh, you can always activate it later, but I'm gonna activate it right now. So hit OK. So right now we're looking through the active camera, which is camera 1. And if you click these icons, you can tumble your view. I'm just gonna undo that. If you press C, you can tumble between the different types. So like this guy, for example, I would be able to get a little out. And remember, you're not constrained to this, because you can always, just undo that one more time, you can always change your views. Right now I have a 1 view, but I can do a 4 view split bottom, right? So this is the top, this is the front, and this is the right. And that allows you to, and you can even come here and do like custom view 1 if you want. So it's like a custom view, and it allows you to just, give you a sort of like a perspective within Maya. You know how you have the perspective just to tumble around? Same principle. So with this, if you press V, you got your axes here, so you can just move your layer on the Z layer. You just come here back to camera 1, and from the top view, I'm just going to select this and simply move it back. See, that's the reason why we made this really big, so that we can actually take it, move it all the way far. And let's bring in the foreground, the middle ground I mean, and also make it a 3D layer, and just move it on the C axis. Now if you don't want to wait for the icon to show up, you can press arrow down within the view, or arrow up, and that's just going to move it up, or shift down and shift up. And the foreground. So here's my foreground again, make it into a 3D layer, and just going to move it a tad bit back. Alrighty, so we're on our way here. Now we have this camera, and I'm just gonna go ahead and make this view the custom view. Actually, we're gonna make this view a custom view. And the reason why I'm doing this is so that we can see our camera. So I'm just gonna go ahead and select camera 1, and you can see a little camera there. That's it. And if you press V, you can always move the Z. And if you open up the translation options to transform, you can change the point of interest or the position. So I can always take my position X, Y, Z. So I can take the Y position, just to tab it down. And just gonna move around here. And just adjust it up a little bit. I'm going to change this to interactive, see if I get a little bit of a faster. Alrighty, so let's go ahead and adjust some of our layers. So let's go ahead and select the background. I'm just going to tumble up a little bit here. And going to scale it up and make it really, really big. And the middle ground, and I'm also going to make it a little bit bigger. And going to move it on the position, just going to move it down. Maybe a tad bit over here, just to give it more. There we go. And then there's the foreground. So we got some basics going on there. Now just check our alphas to see if things are working okay, or if we need to move our camera up. Alrighty, so now that we have a basic layout here, just gonna do a simple motion, and just gonna select this camera and look and open up the position here. And the point of interest. Just do it like that. And it's going to set a keyframe here at frame 0, and come to here and simply move it all the way out here. And if we make a little RAM preview, and let's see what we get with that. So you can see how the objects in the foreground and background are moving differently. You can do different things with this. I'm just trying to keep this exercise a tad bit simple. So we have this little sky, so I'm just going to go ahead and add my sky. And if I want to, I can always make it a 3D layer as well. Just move it really to the back. and scale it. And we can start doing some color correction. So just come here into color correction, bring up the levels just a tad, and let's come here to the background, and we're just going to give it a bit of an environmental effect. So you can do that by tinting it. Come here to the middle ground and tinting this guy. Let's come here to the background and adjust that guy a tad bit more. It doesn't want to be my friend today. That's it. Let's try and keep that background a little bit brighter. And let's go ahead and let's try this. Stylize, glow. See if we can give it just a bit, or we can either do that or we can do some exposure. But let's see how we do this. Now if you want to isolate a layer, you can simply select it. Okay, there we go. And let's give this guy a bit of a halo. So actually we'll do a halo by changing the focal length. So we have to figure out what the distance of that background is. So let's just take a look at it. Position 3700, and the position of the camera is, so it's about 4,000 or 5,000 difference. So here in the camera, if you look at the camera options, you have your depth of field on, and you can change the focus distance to that number, or actually I can put it on the foreground. Makes maybe more sense. So what you can see here, I'm going to just go back to one view, is select the foreground, look at the position of that, 640, so let's try 1000, and let's take our aperture to 2.5. Five, 10. So the camera position is at negative 1390, and the foreground position is at 640, so it's 2000. There we go. So now we have these elements in the foreground in focus and the elements in the background out of focus. And let's just change this aperture a little bit. Sorry, I meant 150. There we go. So let's do a little preview. It's probably gonna take a little bit to preview this. But you can get a sense of what's happening on there. So you can keep playing with that, and that's basically it. I can bring in that logo, but then I'm just gonna start expanding more and more and more, longer and longer and longer. But the principle is the same. You can always just gonna do that. Okay, I'm just gonna do bring it in. Period. Okay. So here's the name. And if I were to make that a 3D layer again, there's a lot of things you can do with this. I can bring this here into foreground. Maybe just have multiple copies of this. And so what we're gonna do is just have this guy out of frame, go into for views bottom, and over here I'm just gonna do it a little quicker so it doesn't take so long to think. But at second one, the position of this guy and its scale is going to be that's it right there. So I'm just going to go ahead and keyframe the position and the scale. And a couple of frames before, its position is going to be over here. And I'm just going to key the Y rotation so that it ends at that position. Maybe that's too much. I'm just going to give it, say, 90-degree rotation, or let's see if 90 degrees works. Let's move it up. Oops. And precision. Let's try keying this over here, deleting that last keyframe for the camera, and just a couple of frames after you key the point of interest there, and a couple of frames later, take the point of interest. The point of interest is fine. Let's just double check it. And let's grab this guy. Let's grab this position. There we go. So this like that. Take the point of interest up. Take the actual camera's position up as well. And a little bit like that. And let's just take our foreground, and I'm just going to scale it up a little bit just to position it better once it comes in. Just slight adjustments. And let's just adjust our cameras a little bit more so that it comes in a little bit further, and I'm just going to add a background, a black background behind that foreground, or behind that cloud layer. So I'm just going to bring in this white background color here, and color correction, tint, so it's just a flat layer there. No need to make that 3D. Just gonna adjust the position of the camera, the framing of it for this last frame. And if you need to change any of your tangents, you can come here and try and change the tangents, or you can look at your tangents in the view here, so you can adjust anything there. I'm going to try to make it a little bit more natural, see how that looks. I know I'm changing this part too, but I want to see how that looks. interest. There we go. And I'm just going to make it linear from there by changing the Z position, the X position I mean, like so. And a little bit of the point of interest too. Okay, so go back to one view, and I'm going to just make this 1/3 resolution, and I'm going to make a little preview and see what we get. So there you go, little motion graphics, and you know, you can always keep playing with this and adjust more things. I know that the this is just clean up the background layer here, the logo layer is being shown early on when there's no motion to it. So I'm just gonna change its position, its location. There we go. And I'm gonna let it come in a little bit sooner so that we don't have one motion followed by the other. We actually have a motion and then we have another motion. And maybe we can do a little bit of adjustments here. Let's try. Color correction. Now let's go ahead and try. What is it at? Generate. Oh my god. There we go. Sorry about that. Let's try. Oh, I don't know. Let's try generating a light burst. So we're just gonna do a light burst here from let's do it over here. So the red length is going to be 0. Just going to key that in the intensity. And over here, the ray length is going to be longer. And the intensity is also going to get stronger. And let's see if we can position it right on the right spot. And we got ourselves a fading, an element that allows for a fade out or for a transition out. So just gonna make a new solid here. Make comp size, gonna make it white, and make a mask. And right on this point, this mask is going to be small. It's covering that white area right there. So we're just gonna key path and just right away we're just gonna take this mask all the way out like that, and we're gonna give it a little bit of feather, maybe 20. Let's zoom in here to our frames, and we're just going to change some of the position settings of this guy. And feather, let's increase it a little bit more. And on that last move, we're also going to grab this camera and we're going to change the position. So from here, keys to values, and at the end of the transition, we're just going to just hide that mask for a second. Just going to zoom in. So get a little bit of that motion too. And let's just press end there, and let's see our simulation. Let's see if this worked. Oops, that effect's on there, so just go ahead and mask opacity and mask opacity. Let's see if that helps us or if we still need more. Let's take our cameras animation, just try and do it a little bit sooner. Alrighty, there we go. The rest is just standard logo treatment and stuff like that, changing colors and all that funky stuff, but I don't want to get that much in depth. So anyway, I hope you didn't find this tutorial too boring, but anyway, I'll see you next time with the next tutorial, so bye.